Hi there, I'm Leisha Grabinski with Blue Sky. It is the surest sign of spring. Not the robin or the pelicans or the buds on the trees or the prairie crocuses. It is the plethora of potholes. Today we want you to call in with a pothole report. I mean, they are everywhere. Where is the biggest hole in your community? What does your street look like? Call us 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca.
You're listening to Blue Sky. We're coming to you from the traditional territories of the Dene, Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis. Here's your host, Leisha Grabinski.
Well, it is one of the surest signs of spring. The potholes are back. Perhaps you've already lost part of your car to these massive holes, or maybe you felt unsafe swerving to miss them. I was out biking last night, and it was like an obstacle course because of them. CAA Saskatchewan is in the midst of their annual Worst Roads in Saskatchewan campaign. We'll hear about some of the worst offenders in the communities around Eston and Hudson Bay.
Those potholes, they're big. You hit them and it rocks your vehicle.
The local crew here does the best they can to patch them, but it only stays for so long. By the end of the winter, they're all back. They just peel off like a scab.
Well, we also want to hear from you today. What are the roads like where you are? How does that affect your life? Has the state of Saskatchewan roads caused damage to your vehicle? Maybe you've hit a pothole on your bicycle or your motorcycle. If you use Saskatchewan roads, we want to hear from you, your pothole reports. Call 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Angel Blair is CAA's Worst Roads roving reporter. She's been crisscrossing the province, checking out some of the worst offenders and talking to people affected by those roads. She's in our Regina studio to tell us more. Hi, Angel.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Tell us about CAA's Worst Roads campaign. What's the goal of it?
Well, CAA's Worst Roads campaign is an online engagement campaign that draws attention to the province's worst unsafe roads. So what does that mean? Well, we're looking for stories about potholes or maybe crumbling pavement, poor infrastructure, lackage of signage, or maybe congestion, and that could be whether you're a pedestrian, whether you're a passenger, whether you're a cyclist or a motorist. So we want to hear from all road users because the goal is to have safe roads for all of us to use.
So you gather all that information and then you come up with this list. How exactly do you make the list?
Do you know what it is? What you do is you vote online. So what they do is they calculate it. And if you go to the list, what you need to do is go to caask.ca/worst roads. And in there, you can vote. But you can also, in the top right-hand corner, take a look at the current top 10 list. So it changes hour by hour, minute by minute. And if I look at it right now, it looks like QPAR is topping the list right now. So we want to hear from you. You can vote one road per user in a 24-hour period. But again, vote as many times as you want during a week in that 24-hour period each time. So we want to hear from you.
Okay, well, if someone's listening from QPAR right now, you might be able to tell us the story of what people are voting on here. So you can call us at 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Angel, do you know what's going on in QPAR?
Do you know what? I think that one, and I can check it right now, I think what they're voting on is potholes. Yes, they're saying potholes, and Buchanan is saying poor road maintenance. We've got new on the list this year, Lipton. I don't think we've heard from them before. Southie's on there, and Moose Jaw's in there. We've got some northern communities too. So it's really cool because we do hear from all areas of the province. And I love it. Saskatchewan's so wonderful that way.
I bet. Can you remind listeners about where some of the worst roads were last year?
Sure. The best way to describe that is we have a YouTube channel. So what we did is we went out to these communities that made the top 10 last year, and we actually talked to the road users. So we got real people, real stories, real concerns. And when I say concerns, it's not like they just want a pretty road. It's not about vanity. It's not like we want our community to have the nicest road. No, there are serious concerns about potholes, making the travel to and from work, whether maybe it's for pleasure, they're traveling in and out of the community with tourism and business. They're using these roads because Saskatchewan is a landlocked province. We have the most kilometers of road, the highest length of road service compared to any other province. So these roads matter. What they're saying is it's really affecting our commute, our vehicles, and our safety.
What do you hear specifically about potholes?
Well, lots of times there are concerns about vehicle damage. There are concerns about, speed limits. You can't go as fast as the speed limit. I mean, you do have to drive according to road conditions. But what we hear is there's a safety concern, and they would really like them fixed.
So you've been out and about checking out the state of roads across the province, and you've been making these videos with people affected by these roads. So we have some of those interviews from CAA, those videos that you produced, to play throughout the show. And I thought we could play the first one. So this is the first one we're going to play. It's from Hudson Bay.
They're absolutely a safety concern. They're not just little bumps in the road, little cracks in the road.
Painful, very bumpy, and yeah, it's just stressful because you don't know if you're going to hit a big hole or what's out there.
I could probably do a pretty good obstacle course. I got a big Suburban full of kids. I got 4 kids, and they go for a pretty good ride back there, and my vehicle takes an absolute beating.
Not only is Highway number 9 the main road for traffic flowing north and south of town, it's vital for the farming, logging, and tourism industry, as well as the people who live here.
Yeah, I think it's been neglected long enough, and I think it needs some work.
Those potholes, they're big. You hit them and it rocks your vehicle.
Road users say the highway that runs all the way to Yorkton is littered with potholes, uneven surface, and broken pavement. They also say that they're thankful for the work that has been done, but it's still unsafe.
The local crew here does the best they can to patch them, but it only stays for so long. By the end of the winter, they're all back. They just peel off like a scab.
It's unsafe. I avoid traveling that way as much as possible.
I'm just trying to get awareness out there because, like I said, I got a lot of family, I got a lot of friends that travel that highway, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt.
So there's some of the people in and around Hudson Bay. If you have a story about the potholes in your community, we'd love to hear from you today. You can call us at 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Angel, that video there, does all of this attention from CAA help get places like Hudson Bay higher up on the priority list for fixing?
Well, what we do with that top 10 list every year is we do distribute it to the government and business leaders. And we hope that does spark conversation and action. And we're often asked, is there a winner? And our answer to that is pretty easy. It's pretty simple. If a road gets attention and it gets fixed, that's a win. So what we want to do is draw attention to it. And we have talked to, community leaders and business leaders and sometimes even different forms of government. And they say, yeah, they have recognized the list. And a lot of time, it's not a surprise to them. It's well documented, and it's known that a lot of these roads do need attention. And again, we have 250,000 kilometers of roads. So there is a lot of roadway to cover. And the problem is some of them are unsafe.
So you mentioned the list. Voting began April 9th. And so you said QPAR was the top of the list right now, but it rotates depending on how the voting's going, because you don't have a top contender just yet, do you?
No, well, what happens is we have up until April 29th to vote. At midnight, we close the voting. And then on April 29th, we will announce the top 10 for 2024.
So we've been focusing a bit on QPAR, but that doesn't mean they're going to be the top of the list once voting's done.
No.
Okay, well, let's go to Eston next. So Eston had 2 roads that made the worst of list, highways 44 and 30. You went out to Eston, Angel, to interview folks. Let's take a listen to your report about Highway 44 near Eston.
Somebody is going to lose a life on this highway.
It's pretty miserable, lots of potholes, some kind of washboardy spots. Definitely want to be paying attention, not much of a shoulder left on either side.
Cody Kamitsky was not surprised to hear Highway 44 near her town of Eston, Saskatchewan received the most votes and took the top spot in our top 10 worst roads campaign last year.
Not at all. No, me and pretty much everyone I talked to were voting for it pretty much every day, so definitely was not a surprise there.
Yeah, somebody said if you can drive around here, you can drive anywhere in Saskatchewan because we had the worst 2 roads.
No, it didn't surprise me one little bit. You live in this area and everybody knows from here to Glidden is a horrendous highway. You don't know if you're getting pulled into the wrong lane of traffic or if you're going to get pulled into the ditch.
A road Rob Serrata says is getting worse each year.
If you just keep throwing stuff on top, it's going to do nothing but settle, and you're back into highs and lows and heaves and water spots all over the road that are going to throw you from side to side as you drive down.
There's certain spots where you'll hit and it's washboarded so bad that it'll actually kick the back end of your vehicle off to the side, or if it's rained or there's wet conditions at all, you hydroplane or if you meet an oncoming vehicle, your visibility is greatly reduced. It's
Pothole. Tell us the story of what happened. We'd like to know what the roads look like in your community or a nearby highway. So that number to call is 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Some pretty sobering tape there at the end there, Angel, because we have heard a lot of concerns about safety. Of course, that is a major concern. But you also spoke to people who point out that it's bad for the economy, right? If the roads are bad, people don't want to go out on them. So I thought before we get your thoughts on this, let's listen to a bit more of an interview. So this is the one you did for CAA, again, with folks in Eston.
We're finding that we're losing customers to our businesses in the community because they're vocally saying, I won't travel Highway 44 and 30 to get to Eston anymore because it's too dangerous and it's too hard on our equipment and vehicles. It's very narrow. It's full of potholes and pools of water on the sides of the road that'll suck you into the ditch if you're not careful. You meet a big truck on that road where those potholes are and you're taking your life in your hands.
And I've had good-sized rocks into my windshield on my pickup truck and onto my sports car.
Now residents also say the unsafe roads are affecting tourism in the area.
And so that whole extended 30 is a disaster to travel and dangerous. So it's cut back on people traveling to the regional park to use it for camping, golfing, and relaxing at the swimming pool. They've got so they don't want to go there anymore because of the roads. Something has to happen before we have bad accidents or it costs our community too much to survive.
Angel, were you surprised by that?
I was surprised to the extent in some of the communities that they said, the poor roads do affect them. It's one thing to say that road, we've got potholes, but when it affects, the vitality of a community, that's not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are very passionate about it. So, from CAA, we want to thank all of the road users that talked to us from the bottom of our hearts. It was really interesting and important that we get their stories out. They had, such good stories to tell, and we were excited to tell those stories because it got information out. And what we always say is, that's why we do this campaign. It brings attention to the roads. And if you identify with this story, or maybe you have your own story, then vote, then tell us about it. We'd love to hear from you.
Do you primarily get stories from more rural communities? Is it typically about the highways? I'm in Saskatoon and we've got some terrible potholes, and obviously, it's not affecting the economy in the way it might be in a place like Eston. But do you get stories from cities too?
Absolutely. I think it just depends on the year. And what people are kind of going through at that particular time. And, in the months of March coming up when that snow melts and you have that freeze thaw cycle, as Ethan was mentioning earlier today, Mother Nature is not kind to our roadways. So it is something we're dealing with. So I think when we talk about the weather and what effect it has on the highways and, the patterns, it depends on, what kind of a winter we saw. It depends when that snow melts and what roads are affecting you. And you're absolutely right. We do hear from both towns and cities. We hear about, local roads. We hear gravel roads. And one time we even had a pasture road. On our top 10. So we do hear from, all sorts of roadways from different types of road users. And it just kind of depends on the year. So this year, again, we have brand new places on our list. So that's exciting. Not in the way that, yes, there's more bad roads, but it's interesting. And hey, if we can help get attention for some of these roads and bring that attention and, make our roadways safe, that's the whole goal.
Yeah, and I hear that safety, obviously a top priority with this. At the same time, CAA is often who we call, right? If you have issues on the road and people may have damaged their vehicle on the road and need assistance. So I'm curious about the information you've got on that. How much damage do Saskatchewan people see to their vehicles?
I think it definitely is. There is a correlation from bad roads and maybe damage to your vehicles. It's definitely there. No one wants that. No one wants to see damage to your vehicles, but also no one wants to get hurt. Right? You can fix a vehicle, but there is that safety aspect. As humans, we don't want people to be hurt. So CAA, as a company, always wants to put safety first. We want you to travel safe on the roads. We want you to be prepared in all different situations, and we do all the press releases. And it's not fun. If you're stranded or anything like that, we're here to help. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is our safety campaign. We want to bring attention to it, and hopefully that gets attention.
I'll tell you a little story. I was out biking last night, and we're going to actually hear from a cycling coach a bit later on this show because cyclists are affected too. And I was out with a fairly large group last night biking for the very first time this season. And they've got safety rules, and you're supposed to shout out, "Pothole!" if you see something ahead to warn all the cyclists behind you. And I swear it was just like constant, "Pothole, pothole, pothole." But what was happening is the cyclists had to swerve away from potholes, and then, you're on streets with vehicles and they're swerving too. And luckily it was an evening where not a ton of people were out, so there were no major issues, but you can see if the road conditions aren't great, the potential for an issue to pop up, whether you're in a vehicle or you're cycling or you're out walking. You can just see where things might lead. That's my story about potholes. We'd love to hear from you today. What have you seen in your community? What's it like? What's the pothole situation? Angel Blair is CAA's Worst Roads roving reporter, and now we're leaning on you to share your pothole reports with us. So give us a call, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. We also have the head of roads for the city of Regina joining us in just a bit. So if people have a question for him, I suggest you call us right now to get in the queue, 1-800-716-2221, and or you could put the question in an email, bluesky@cbc.ca. One other thing to note, we are talking about something very, very visual. Angel had provided us with some videos of her trips around the province. So we are streaming live today on YouTube. So the person we'll be talking to from the city of Regina will be on location at a pretty bad spot. So if you want to see the show today, you can find it streaming live on our YouTube channel. Just search for CBC Saskatchewan. Right now, let's check in with David Shield, who joins us. David, what's making news today?
Well, the federal budget will be released in about an hour and a half. It includes billions of dollars of spending on housing. You can hear our coverage live starting at 2 o'clock right here on CBC Radio 1. Most people should have received their latest carbon tax rebates. However, it's not clear how much money people in the province will be receiving for their next rebate. The federal government has talked about cutting Saskatchewan's rebates after Premier Moe refused to remit the carbon tax on home heating. And La Ronge and Pelican Narrows are under a special weather statement from Environment Canada. The Churchill can expect to receive anywhere from 15 to 25 centimeters of snow over the next few days. That snow could also fall as rain, especially around Highway 106. And I'll have a full newscast for you coming up at 1 o'clock.
Okay, David, do you have a pothole report?
Yeah, I haven't really noticed any, massive killer potholes, except I was at Gordie Howe Bowl last weekend, and their parking lot, man, it was like it was shelled.
Oh, jeez. That's how I should use that language to describe my street. It was like it was shelled.
Well, I don't know. I doubt your street has anything on the Gordie Howe Bowl parking lot, because boy, that is bumpy. No joke.
I'm going to head in that direction and do some comparisons.
Okay, then.
Okay. Well, David, thank you.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's David Shield with his own pothole report. You can call us with yours, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. You're listening to us live on CBC Radio 1, also streaming live on CBC Listen and live today on YouTube. So you can see a video of some of the things that we're talking about when it comes to our roads. We've mostly, so far, other than David and I, we've mostly been hearing from people outside of the cities, but folks in Regina also have concerns about the roads. Here is 16-year-old Marianne. I'll say it.
Why is the pothole situation in Regina so bad? There's so many of them, and even on Ring Road, it's supposed to be a flat area of land so that there's not that many accidents, but there's a lot of potholes there.
Have you hit a pothole?
A lot of times. There's one right in front of my house, actually, and it's like a big one. So.
What did it do to your car?
Well, I tried to avoid it, but my dad has went into it a lot, and the suspension, I wouldn't be surprised if it's ruined soon.
That's 16-year-old Marianne. I'll say it. Now, the person in charge of Regina's roads is Mike Eade. He's the manager of roadways maintenance operations. So this time of year, it's also street sweeping, and this week it could even be snow removal. But today we are talking to him about potholes. Mike, welcome to Blue Sky.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. Tell us where you are, because I think you chose a special location to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm downtown South Regina right now on McDougall Road. We actually just recently had a road repair done. Not necessarily a full-blown pothole. It was actually a utility cut where we had to do some work around a manhole, and it did result in a pothole. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to clean that up. So my crew actually just finished up on site, but I am at site right now, so you can actually see the repair that was made just recently, and the team is on to the next hole.
Okay, what's your assessment of the roads this year? We had a bit of a wild winter, right? The temperature fluctuations were sure something. And so what's your assessment of the pothole situation in Regina this year?
It might sound weird, but this is a typical process and season for us. We do struggle in southern Saskatchewan with the weather, and that really plays and wreaks havoc on the roadways, as it was talked about at the top of the hour. But it's the constant freeze and thaw, and the big swing in temperatures that we see. And we saw that this winter, even though it wasn't a heavy snow winter, we did see temperatures get into the minus 40s, and then a week, two removed from that, saw plus 20s. And that's where we really have some struggles with our roadways.
Mm-hmm. Struggles indeed. You know, the question we got from Marianne is really what is it about Regina? And you've explained it there. But are potholes actually worse in that city or in Saskatoon than in other places in Canada?
Well, I actually can't speak to that. I'm only in charge of the ones in Regina. Again, I only know what we deal with, unfortunately.
There'd be a comparison to be made, though, between cities like in Saskatchewan, maybe Winnipeg.
Yeah, there could be. Again, I can't speak directly to what Winnipeg might deal with as far as the temperature swings. I just know that in southern Saskatchewan, and I mean parts of Saskatchewan, and I mean the farmers will know, we get pockets where we get a lot of snow, and some pockets don't see any snow, and some pockets get the minus 45s, and you might drive an hour in Saskatchewan, and they only got minus 19. So again, we do see some weird weather in southern Saskatchewan, specifically in Regina, and that's why we're really having a tough time with potholes.
So tell me a little bit more about what makes it so challenging to maintain the roads in Regina. Yes, we have the temperature fluctuations. Then spring hits. What does it actually take to repair roads in Regina?
It takes a big crew of employees that really take this stuff to heart. This is, our team is made up of residents of Regina, and they really take pride in the work that they do out in the field. And they've all got family and neighbors that are asking them the same questions about potholes and road repairs. And again, it's so important that we're keeping things safe, and that's what it comes down to. It's a struggle, and I mean, the road is constantly, our ground in Regina just isn't fantastic to begin with. There's a lot of gumbo, a lot of soft material underneath. So for us to put a roadway on it, it just makes it that much tougher. So we are constantly having to, go back to areas years later after a full-blown resurface has been put in, where we've had to do some repairs just because of the constant shifting, because of the freeze-thaw. So it's definitely a concern.
How much of the budget is dedicated to fixing potholes?
Again, I can only speak to my budget in particular with roadways, and I mean roadways. Roadway maintenance that's under my group is not just potholes. So that also includes sidewalk repairs, also includes landscape. So any sod work, things like that. Anytime that there's cuts potentially made where we need to have some repairs, that's included in that. We also do some smaller sections of roadways as well. But anything larger is typically done from other departments. So we've got roadway preservations. We'll do full-blown recapture of roadways where maybe everything needs to be looked at and repaired. And then we've got our capital projects for anything large scale where maybe a complete roadway has to be reconstructed. So again, for me and my team, I've got basically about a third of my budget is spent on potholes.
And how many people would that take? You said it takes a lot of people, but how many workers do you have fixing the potholes?
We have a lot. Potholes in particular, we typically have 4 crews dedicated to potholes every season, and the season starts at the end of April, so we're only a couple weeks away from the full-blown start, and that takes us right till October. 4 crews of about 5 employees each per crew, but then we do have the flexibility to move some people in and out if we need some support.
So is the city considering any new technologies to help with the pothole problems?
You know what? It's always something that we're entertaining. Again, I can't speak directly to any procurement because we do have a procurement branch that's in charge of that. But again, they're looking at all opportunities to find the right suppliers for any buying goods and services, anything that's needed. The city's always looking for innovative ways to provide the goods and services that we provide. So again, we welcome anybody that might have a new innovative project or a process to submit through our procurement process, for sure.
So when we were doing some research for this show, we came across something really interesting, an interesting product that is out on the market. It is called the Python 5000 Pothole Patcher. It is a self-propelled pothole patching machine that can repair a pothole in less than 2 minutes. And then the driver sits inside an air-conditioned cab. It's not cheap. It costs about $563,000, and it's used in cities all across North America, including Thunder Bay, Ottawa, and Montreal. But here's the kicker. It is made in Regina by Superior Road Solutions. Les Jalisco invented the machine. He has since retired and lives in South Regina. We caught up with him to talk about his invention.
Now, how fast does it work and what it could save? Okay, Right now, let's say it's $500. It's over $500,000. Okay, you could patch a pothole with it in let's say 5 minutes. per pothole. It outperforms any manual work type of pothole patching by probably 10 to 1. How many billions of dollars, let's say the highway department would save is just unimaginable. In an hour, you're at 5 minutes, you'll do 12 potholes, right? So and then 12 in 8 hours, you'll be close to 100 potholes. It's very fast. The saving would come from patching the potholes as they develop. See, first of all, we are not very efficient of fixing a 6-foot pothole. The dangerous potholes, it's not a 6-footer, it's a 1-footer. When the tire hits a pothole, if it's a 6 foot, you drive in and you drive out. But if you have a pothole that is 1 foot, it jars the car, and that's the one that knocks out your wheel alignment. It separates your hubcap and jars your brain out. A 1 foot pothole when you hit it. So you should fix it before it's 1 foot. If you just leave it within hours or days, it becomes 5 foot. So, or 2 foot or 3 foot, whatever. There is no trick to it. Fix it while it's small. The current, they can't afford, or they don't do. If you got up, let's say a 6 inches pothole, that it could be fixed, or should be fixed. We don't. They don't bother with it. It's no problem yet. But next day it's already a problem. So fix it, maintain it as it develops. Preventive maintenance, it is. It's not nothing new on cars, nothing preventive maintenance. You can't afford not to have one type of a deal.
That is Les Halisco, who lives in Regina and invented the Python 5000 pothole patcher. We are streaming live on our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube page, so I've been watching a video of this Python. It is something to see. If you log on quick, you'll be able to see it too. It is used in other cities across North America, including Montreal, Ottawa, and Thunder Bay. We've got Mike Eade with us, who's the manager of roadways maintenance operations with the city of Regina. Mike, have you heard of the Python 5000 pothole patcher before?
Actually, I haven't.
Oh, interesting. Because my next question is, why is it not used here?
Well, in all fairness, I've only been with the city since mid last year. So again, I don't have the tenure that might be involved. But also I'm not in the procurement branch, so I'm not sure if this has ever been a project that's gone through that process. But again, like I had mentioned before, we're always looking for new innovative ways to do what we do today, more cost effective, better bang for the buck for the taxpayers. And again, something that's user friendly. So in this case, I would really welcome Mr. Halisco to submit through our city's procurement process.
What are your thoughts in general on catching the potholes while they're still small? Do you think that could save the city money in the long run?
I think it's huge. It's a big one. We do rely on our city residents to let us know about potholes. Again, if a resident wants to report a pothole that they see, and seriously, truly, we often get reports of a pothole that we haven't been reported about. So we haven't had a report of. And I think oftentimes that residents just assume we know that the pothole's there, and that's not always the case. So we do rely on residents to report these, and they can do so through calling our 777-7000 number, which will get directly through, or they could reach through our website, regina.ca, and actually click on the service repair.
Okay, I have a question from someone who called into studio. They wanted to ask about liability. If you hit a city pothole, can you make a claim?
You can, and actually through the same two processes that I just explained, you could actually call it in through 777-7000, or you can go onto our website. And actually, when you get to our website, you can do a search feature, and it'll actually take you through for claims. And there is a report that you would have to fill out. It gets investigated and goes from there.
Okay. I've got a couple more emails I want to share with you. So Brett in Regina writes that he wanted to share a story with us. Last year, driving in the Cathedral neighborhood at night, our car hit what can only be called a trench across the road. The oil pan exploded and took our car out of commission for weeks as we waited for a repair. The city had cut the road to change out or repair a water line. They then filled the trench with gravel and sand. When the spring thaw hit, those materials washed away, leaving a massive trench that stretched right across the road. Neighbors in that area had called the city about the trench before it took our car out, but the city hadn't marked it as a hazard yet. And this person is saying that the city has not they still claimed no liability. A question for the roadway guy: can we use different materials for road building in Regina that would be less prone to shifting and being washed away in the spring thaw? Are there alternate ways to make roads that would be a better fit for our climate and geography, but perhaps aren't being used because they are more expensive? Mike?
Yeah, if there is, then we don't know about it. It's a situation where, unfortunately, through the winter months, and I say that loosely because of temperature, because we are still classified as winter months right now, and there is still some talk of some white
Snow.
stuff. But
Yep.
let's not talk about it. I didn't bring that up. I thought that was brought up at the top of the hour. Anyways,
It was.
yeah, perfect. So I didn't start that. So with respect to the temperatures that we deal with, optimization of our product is key in order for it to work properly. We need temperatures above 10 degrees Celsius in order to use our hot mix, and that's what will work and does work in our environment the best. We do struggle in the winter months because we can't use hot mix. Again, it doesn't work properly in sub-zero temperatures. So we use a cold mix compound, and it's used throughout different provinces and different municipalities during that period of time. It is a cold mix. It's used temporarily to fill the holes so that it doesn't cause damage. And in all fairness, we have to go back to those locations once the temperature raises so that we can actually make the proper repair because they are only temporary.
The big question: how does the city determine which potholes to fix first?
It's a good question. We go by a pretty standard process and program of prioritizing. So we've got a team of inspectors out in the field that are actually inspecting. So a lot of people might not know that. We do have trained professionals that are inspecting the roadways and actually reporting back the majors. We do start our season with our arterial and collector roads, so our main roads, which get the most traffic in Regina. So things like Ring Road, Albert Street, Louvain, some of the more popular traveled roads, especially bus routes. We also verify those as well. But that's where we start our priority on our patching. We are also this year starting some priority in the downtown core. So that's Albert to Broad, Vic to Sask Drive, where we're going to be putting some priority at the start of the season there. But it's all on severity. So we start at the most severe and work our way down. But obviously, we want to do that in the most highly trafficked, used zones first, and then we go from there.
And if you call the city, does it move your street, the pothole you were concerned about, does it move it up on the list?
If you do call the city, it's registered on the list. Now, again, we have to prioritize everything. So if you call the city, we will send somebody to inspect. And depending on what comes out of that inspection, severity-wise, then it moves on the list, whether it's high, low, if we're already in an area. And that's where we can sometimes, get pretty lucky, is that we might already have a crew in an area. Then somebody calls in a request and it happens to be right there. The severity meets the threshold. And then we send a crew there to repair.
Okay. Mike, this has been great. Thank you for the information.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, that's Mike Eade, Manager of Roadways Maintenance Operations with the City of Regina. We've got Chris on the line in Regina. Hi, Chris.
Good afternoon, Alicia. So a few minutes ago, you were asking the fellow from the city of Regina how Regina's problems compared to other cities, such as, say, Winnipeg. And I lived there for 21 years prior to coming back to Saskatchewan. And I can say that Winnipeg's roads, if anything, are even worse than Regina's. One thing they did there, which I've never seen in any other city, and I hope nobody else ever attempts this, is they would construct roads with these large pads of poured concrete. But of course, there were these seams in between the pads of concrete that they would lay down, and over time the seams separate, causing gaps, and they start deteriorating from the edges. And so now in a lot of areas of Winnipeg, you've got these slabs of concrete, and then you've got these asphalt patches all around the edges, and it's awful. So I don't know. I mean, Winnipeg's winters are probably even more severe than Regina's. They probably don't get as many freeze-thaw cycles as we do, but, they get long stretches of really cold weather.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the soil there compares to Regina's gumbo, but their roads are a mess. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go.
There you go.
Chris,
Okay.
thank you. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Jan also brought up Winnipeg in an email, or I brought up Winnipeg, then Jan wrote, they do have temperature swings. My 92-year-old uncle lives there. He rides his bike and walks. They have some bad streets, but the big difference there is Winnipeg actually clears the snow after a big storm or even a regular snowfall, side streets and main thoroughfares. And in my opinion, that's one reason our streets are in a mess. Here, we're lucky if we see a grader all winter. Check some of the older neighborhoods. It's brutal. Well, Jan, thanks for emailing. I really appreciate that. I want to introduce you now to Lacey Schroeder, who is a cycling coach. She works with Just Try It, a group that trains women for a triathlon. And this means she takes more than 100 people out on their bikes to train, but also navigate the streets and the potholes. And so I caught up with her in Saskatoon.
I think there's some of them that are big enough my dog would get lost in them, unfortunately. What I see as a cyclist, though, is when you don't dodge them, if you have accidentally happen to go through them, you're definitely going down, or you're going to have to do some repairs on your bike after.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Like, what risk do potholes pose to cyclists?
One major one is, you wiping out from them. Hitting them at a certain angle, you can definitely go down very, very easily. Other things that can happen is you could get a flat tire from it, you could get a broken spoke, a bent rim, all sorts of issues can happen because of it. Even something simple like your chain skipping off just from hitting it at a certain angle.
So what did potholes do to the group that you were training last year? How many tires did you have to change? What was the impact last year?
Over the course of our 8-week training, I changed 11 tires for people that had gotten flat tires due to hitting potholes. The one spot in particular caused majority of them. I would say about 80% of our blown tires were on the Mewasan Trail, but actually on the road, on White Swan. There's a corner that the city has tried to keep up with, but I believe resurfacing is needed at this point because trying to dodge the meridians, plus all the potholes, plus the filled ones from past years, it just becomes such a hazard. And we did see a majority of them. There was one specific night where I had 3 people get flats all in front of me within a matter of minutes, even though I was yelling out, watch out for potholes. You can't react super quick on a bike. You're only on 2 wheels, you're balancing, and you may end up falling down and causing a bigger reaction behind you. So it's just about being really careful, and we try really hard to communicate that there is these hazards on the road.
What did you see this spring as an example?
There's a lot of bad roads this year, I won't lie. I think having no snow until after Christmas really made everybody was out a lot more, and so our roads take a lot of beating because of the traffic. And when that snow did come, it came so heavily that I don't think our infrastructure had the ability to keep the roads as clean as they possibly needed to in order to prevent some of the issues that happen when weather changes so rapidly like that.
So are we known, are cyclists from Saskatchewan known as being folks who
who know how to dodge a pothole? Like, is that a reputation that follows us?
Absolutely. I think the only city that's probably worse than us is Winnipeg. And I've biked there too, so I can say that fairly easily. It's pretty bad there too. But yeah, it's, I think it's a weather thing. We face those extreme weathers, 40 above in the summer and 40 below in the winter. Our infrastructures just can't handle that.
So you've come to accept it? It's just...
I've come to accept it. It's a realization that it's going to happen. I was born and raised here, so I understand that it's just one of those things you deal with. Spring is definitely the worst. Once the city crews get out, they do a phenomenal job at getting to what they can. But this city keeps growing and growing, and I don't think there's enough staff probably to keep up with what happens out there. They're probably just getting finished in the fall before the first snow falls.
A cycling coach in Saskatoon. I'm Leisha Gravinsky. We've had Angel Blair with us. Angel is CAA's Worst Roads Roving reporter. She helped kick off this conversation. Angel, I want to end on giving you just a couple of minutes to recap why it is important to talk about the potholes on our streets and to raise awareness about the state of our roads in our cities and roads and the highways too.
Well, I think Lacey and Mike made a really good point, both of them saying we need people to be aware of what's going on our roadways. So if there are potholes, if there is dangerous infrastructure out there, maybe the people holding the purse strings or planning the budgets or in charge of fixing them don't know about them. And that's the purpose of this campaign. So CAA is, we're a respected longtime safety advocate. And so with that, we've been doing this Worst Roads campaign for over a decade now and getting the voice of real road users here in Saskatchewan and hearing those stories. That's the purpose of this campaign, bringing attention to what's happening on our roadways and sparking that conversation with business leaders and government. That's what we want. And hopefully that leads to action. As far as voting, you still have lots of time to do it. Go to caask.ca/worstroads. Again, nominate and vote. It only takes a few minutes, and this year, something new to our campaign, you have a chance to win a $1,000 gift card from Shell, courtesy of CAA. So more incentive to vote, but most importantly, we want to hear your stories. We want to make those roads safer. It's a priority for CAA here in Saskatchewan, and we really want to hear from you.
It's been great having you on the show today, Angel. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having us.
That's Angel Blair, CAA's Worst Roads Roving reporter. As you heard, voting for CAA's Worst Road closes on April 29th at midnight. I'm Leisha Gravinsky. You have been listening to Blue Sky on CBC Radio 1, 540 AM across the province, 94.1 FM in Saskatoon, 102.5 FM in Regina. We've been streaming live on our free CBC Listen app, and we've been streaming on our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube page. That was live, but if you missed it and you want to see some of the roads we were talking about, you can find that anytime by going to CBC Saskatchewan's YouTube page. Now, coming up on the next Blue Sky, the federal government has laid out plans for $38 billion in new spending. We're going to talk about what this means for people in Saskatchewan. We'll get political reaction. And as always, we want to hear from you. The budget will be revealed this afternoon, and we want to know how this affects your life. You can join the conversation between 12 and 1 right here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great afternoon.